welcome to Cooking with Cori. I'm your host, Chef Cori Dern, and I'm also a proud media spokesperson for Foodland Ontario, because we all know good things grow in Ontario. Yeah, and this recipe is no different. This is an awesome Ontario bountiful recipe. We are making some beautiful ground lamb samosas. And not just any lamb, my friends, Ontario lamb. So for this recipe, which sounds kind of like challenging, but I'm going to tell you, it's super easy. The hardest part about this recipe is refraining from eating everything that you make, because gosh darn it, it is so good. So for this recipe, I've got some beautiful Ontario lamb. I've got some shredded Ontario carrots. I've got about 1.5 cups of that there. I've got some lovely Ontario cilantro. This lovely hothouse tomato from Ontario. I've got some powdered curry here, but if you wanted to use a curried paste for this, you absolutely could, no problem. Some ground ginger. You can take some ginger root and just grate it down, and there you go. And of course, some salt and pepper. So for this recipe, what you want to do, I have also an onion, the tomato. You want to make sure that everything is diced nice and fine. So I'm going to show you how the easiest way for you to do your onion. One is to cut off the tip so that you have a nice flat surface to start your cut from. The gas is located right here in the tip where the root is, so you want to kind of make sure you want to keep that part intact, and by keeping it intact, you're not going to be crying when you're cutting onions. I am wearing glasses, but it's not the glasses that are protecting me from the onion juice, although I have seen onion goggles, and I've always thought that was kind of funny. You don't need to buy onion goggles for something like this. Just breathe through your mouth. Don't breathe through your nose, breathe through your mouth when you're cutting the onion. Also make sure that when you are peeling your onion, like I am right now, you want to remove the skin, this part right here. It's tough, even as an Ontario onion goes, as beautiful as they are, this is going to be kind of dry and papery, and it's not going to add to your recipe. So I peeled back the onion, and for this recipe, which you can find at foodlandontario.ca, I'm going to use my paring knife. I'm going to do 2 knives to this. I'm just going to cut it down and the thickness for the mince that I want for this onion. And you can see I'm going all the way through the onion, but I'm not going all the way to the root, because that way I can keep it intact so that when I do my dice, it's not going to fall apart on me. And this is a really great way for you to control how thick you want your slices to be. I know that this recipe asks for mince, and I totally agree with it, that you do want nice little pieces of onion in it, as opposed to big chunky pieces. And so here I've used my paring knife to outline it, and now I'm going to use my chef's knife just to get a beautiful dice, mince to be more specific, on this onion. And then you would do the same with the other half. And here you can see this is just an absolutely perfect dice for this recipe. The other thing that we are going to dice up for this lovely recipe is a tomato. There's lots of fun ways that you can dice up a tomato. You can do it the way I'm about to show you, which is to treat it like a grid. And that's exactly what I'm going to do here, is treat this this tomato like it is my own personal grid. And again, I'm not cutting all the way through. I'm just cutting it to shape it, so that way when I do actually cut it, it will not fall apart on me. And I want that tomato to be about the same size as the onion. There we go. And as you saw, again, my hand in a claw position, cutting right through. I have a beautiful dice of my tomato for this recipe. How lovely is that, right? Awesome. Also for this recipe, you're going to have some lovely cilantro. I know that there are folksy woksies who are not big fans of cilantro. A fun fact that I heard, I'm going to encourage you to check it out, just in case I've been misinformed, but people, 10% of the population, think cilantro tastes like soap. And the reason that they think it tastes like soap is because they're missing that in their makeup. The more cilantro that you eat, the less soapy it will taste. I'm going to say I think that's true, because I wasn't a big fan of cilantro, and now I love it. I can't get enough. So into your saute pan, you are going to put your ground lamb, your beautiful Ontario ground lamb, your 1.5 cups of shredded carrot, your diced onion, your diced tomato, your cilantro. You're going to, once the lamb is browned, you're going to incorporate all of those beautiful ingredients, and what you're going to end up with is right here, this beautiful mixture for your filling for your samosa. And it doesn't get any more yummy than this. I always ask for smell-o-vision to be invented because this smells crazy, crazy, crazy delicious. So let's get showing you how we do a samosa. So I'm just gonna move this over here. And I'm gonna move my cutting board out of the way because I can do it right on this plate. So you can go to your store and get either egg roll wrappers or wonton wrappers. The egg roll wrappers are about twice the size of the wonton wrapper. They're about this long. So you're just gonna wanna, whoops, there you go. You're just gonna wanna cut it in half. For this recipe, I was able to find some wonton wrappers. And to the wonton wrapper, I'm just going to lightly run my finger into the water and over the corners, just like this. And I take my absolutely gorgeous filling. You don't need a lot. You think you need a lot, but you really don't need a lot. And then it's up to you how you want to fold it. I'm going to do it like this. And there you go. It is done. There is one beautiful samosa. Don't believe me how easy that was? Look at me. I'm going to do another one. How long did that one take? Like 10 seconds? Once you've got your filling done, I'm going to encourage you to taste it. This is where I say to you that a recipe is like a guideline. So if you like it a little spicier, use a spicier curry or add some, more heat to it. If you like it a little bit more savory, then, maybe go with a more mild curry. Or if you want to please your guests and you don't know if your guests like spicy or not, when you serve this dish, serve it with either a mild or a spicy peach chutney. Would be really, really delicious. So once you finish doing your samosa, then you are going to brush it with a little bit of oil. You're going to put it on parchment paper, and you're going to put it in your oven and bake it. Every oven is different, so I'm going to encourage you to kind of monitor it a bit. Whenever I see a recipe, I tend to go to the air on the side of caution. So if it says 10 minutes, I'll only put it in for 7 minutes, and then you can check to see just how fast it is cooking up. And ready to see the gorgeousness? Look at these samosas. Oh my gosh, they are so good. I can't even believe how delicious they are. So easy to make, so beautiful, crispy on the outside, flavorful on the inside. Yum! With Ontario lamb, can you go wrong? Of course, you can put the filling any kind of meat you'd like, or if you want to go vegetarian, that's totally up to you, but these are delicious as is. Enjoy them with chutney. We'll see you next time, and remember, good things grow in Ontario. Welcome to Cooking with Cori. I'm your host, Chef Cori Dern, and I'm also a proud media spokesperson for Foodland, Ontario. Today I'm doing a wonderful, wonderful recipe. You're going to want to run to your computer and download this recipe because it's crazy delicious. I am making Jamaican-style shepherd's pie. Yes, you heard me, Jamaican-style shepherd's pie. So good. I'm not going to lie, I'm smelling the smells already, and they smell really, really good. This recipe has a lot of really wonderful Ontario product in it. I'm always saying, not just because I'm a proud media spokesperson for Foodland Ontario, but really wonderful food grows here in Ontario. You can taste the difference. For example, this recipe has some pureed garlic in it. The difference between garlic that comes from Ontario and from anywhere else, Ontario garlic is sticky, it's fragrant, your fingers are kind of tacked together when you're using it to, in this case, puree it. And the smell is so fragrant. One clove does the job as opposed to having to deal with like a bulb just to get the flavor that you want. I also have some beautiful Ontario mushrooms here. I've got some Ontario corn. And a great thing about Ontario corn is that when you get it in season, if you take your corn when it's in season and you actually cut it off the cob and then lay it out flat, freeze it, and then put it into a Ziploc bag, and then use it when you need it. It is so fantastic. The sweetness that comes off of Ontario corn, you just can't beat it. I also have some grated Ontario carrot right here for this recipe. And then some onion, and I'm going to tell you right now, this onion, I've done a fine dice on it. With any recipe, I mean, this recipe asks for chopped onion. It's really up to you. I say that this all the time, a recipe is a guideline. So if a recipe calls for big chunks of onion and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want big chunks of onion, guess what? Make the onion a little bit smaller. In this case, I'm going to do like a medium dice, maybe small to medium dice, because for shepherd's pie, I do like the little bits of onion in it and not necessarily big chunks, although it wouldn't take away from the flavor. Ontario onions, they only add flavor to any recipe. So for this onion, I've already cut half, as you can see here. The other half, I've kept the skin on as I peeled it back, and I've kept the root intact. And I'm going to use my paring knife just to cut how big a dice I want to use. And so because I said I'm going to use a medium dice for this, which means it's not going to be big chunks. It's going to be about the size of, how to describe it, maybe your pinky fingernail. And I'm going to use my chef knife, and then I'm going to cut it this way so I have a nice little square. So pretty. There we go. And then you get to the end here, and then I'll chop, and then I'll chop. And now our onion is done, and look, very, very little waste. And for those of you who are thrifty and looking at your budget when you're shopping, keep your onion skin, because when you put that into a stock, it adds, like, let's say you're making chicken soup. There's a really great Ontario Foodland recipe for a chicken and leek soup. If you put your onion in and you keep the skin on, make sure you wash it, of course. It gives it such a beautiful flavor because this is intense onion, but it also adds to the color of the stock. It's just fantastic. So very minimal food waste. You saw that I got a really nice dice on this, and so I'm going to add this to my onion. And you can't have a shepherd's pie without your meat. For this shepherd's pie, we're going to use some ground beef. A lot of times people think shepherd and they think lamb. You can use lamb if you would like. For this, we're using Ontario beef, also known as a cottage pie to some folks. So I've got my one onion diced. I've got my one small container of white button mushrooms sliced. And again, when you slice them, we want to keep them as evenly sliced as possible. When you're cutting your vegetables, especially if you're using a variety of vegetables, you want to keep them as uniform as possible. I'm not saying grab a measuring, measuring stick or ruler and, making sure it's okay. But if you have something that's super thick and something that's super thin, it's just not going to cook evenly. Something might burn, something might, still be al dente, and it's not going to give you your desired result. So here I've got some sliced mushrooms, and I did the slicing. And then I've got my jerk blend. So to this we have some ground cumin, we have crushed red pepper flakes, I've got salt and cayenne pepper. I don't know if I need to kind of tip it up for you a bit so that you can see it. I've got nutmeg and cinnamon. And all of this together is going to make a beautiful Jamaican curry. You can't have that kind of flavor of jerk without having pimento, which is also known as allspice, because that really brings out the flavor in everything. So this recipe is going to be done in two parts. The first part is shepherd's pie. You need to have your Ontario potatoes, my friend. Russet potatoes are fantastic. Why wouldn't you use them? If you want to go rustic, then just really scrub these potatoes really well. You don't have to peel them. Or if you don't want to be rustic, peel your potatoes, but put them into the water so that they don't brown up on you. And then you're going to make your, boil your potato, rinse it off, pour it off once it's fork tender, add your butter, add your milk, anything else that you enjoy, mash it all up, and you're ready to go with your beautiful mashed potato for your shepherd's pie. I like to be efficient in the kitchen, so whenever I'm cooking something, I would basically put the potatoes on first, get them going, and then I'm going to start with everything else. So in my skillet, I'm going to start with my Ontario ground beef. I'm going to saute that with my onions, because I'm not looking to caramelize them, and my garlic, and I'm going to cook it through until it's no longer pink. Once it's no longer pink, I'm then going to add my carrot and my corn and my mushroom. The mushroom, because there's liquid in the mushroom, it's going to make your mixture a little bit wet. So once you finish sauteing and it's all golden, brown and cooked and it looks fantastic, to help absorb that moisture a bit, you're going to add a little bit of your mashed potato to your finished product. And your finished product is going to look just like this. Yum! You know, when they say good things grow in Ontario, they are not lying. Look at this goodness. My goodness. When you go to the Foodland Ontario website, you're going to see a bunch of different recipes, and there's always a great what's in season that you can look and see what's in season to motivate you to adapt your recipe any way you want. So into my little container, I'm going to add my beautiful ground beef with my carrot and my mushroom and the little bit of potato to hold it all together, which is fantastic. And layered it. For your recipe, you could do it individual and quarter your recipe, or you can, you know, add more to it. And then I'm going to add my mash and just plop it on top, just like that. And then I'm going to bake it so that the potatoes are nice and golden. And what that's going to look like is this. How yummy does this look? This is an absolutely beautiful dish. I know that you'll enjoy serving it to your family and friends. Check out this recipe at foodlandontario.ca. Thanks for watching. Hi, welcome to Cooking with Cori. I'm your host, Chef Cori Dern, and I'm also a proud media spokesperson for Foodland Ontario, where we all know good things grow. And today we are making something yummy. Aren't we always making something yummy when we're cooking with Foodland? I know what you're thinking. You're like, yeah, you can't go wrong. Today we're doing a really yummy mini quiche, and we're doing them in prosciutto cups. How yummy does that sound? It sounds absolutely delicious to me. I love quiche. I love prosciutto. Put them together. Woot. So for this recipe, I've got 2 amazing Ontario farm fresh eggs. I've got some lovely rosemary. I've got prosciutto. I've got black olives. I've got Ontario goat cheese, yum. Some sour cream as well. This recipe calls for light sour cream, but you know, I'm not going to surprise you with what I'm about to say. A recipe is a guideline. A recipe is somebody like myself who says, you know what, I just made this most amazing recipe and this is what I did. And then you go to read the reviews and people say, I love this recipe. The only thing I changed was everything. I'm going to say you're not going to want to change anything about these recipes, but if you're inspired, little things like if you want to go with full-fat sour cream, you do you. If you want to go with a smoked prosciutto instead of just a regular prosciutto, that's totally up to you. Generally speaking, the average size of prosciutto looks like this. And for this recipe, because it is a mini quiche in a prosciutto cup, we're using a lovely little teeny tiny tin to make our prosciutto cups in. I think this is absolutely adorable. So for this recipe, what I'm going to do, I think, first is I'm going to get my mise en place ready, and that means I'm going to get everything in its place. So when you go shopping for your recipe, make sure that you grab a list. That way you can be mindful about what you're buying and not tend to overshop like some of us do. And then decide what kind of flavors that you want in what you're making. In this case, the black olives are absolutely perfect. They play nicely against the Ontario goat cheese, definitely. For this recipe, I'm going to do a nice little dice on these cute little olives. The only problem I have with olives is I really like eating them and snacking on them. So, you know, if a recipe calls for me to, you know, dice up, you know, just a tablespoon or 2, you know that the rest of those olives are going into my belly for sure. This is going to add lovely color and texture and flavor to your recipe. And you don't really need a lot for what you're doing. My rule is generally cut up what you think you need and err on the side of caution, because you can always add, you can't always take away. So I'm going to start with this just for my little demonstration here. And I'm also going to take my farm fresh eggs and I'm going to do a little crack. I always break them upside, that way I don't get any shell into what I'm cracking. But on the off chance that I do get a shell in, the best way to get a shell out is to actually use the shell. The shell will, instead of your finger or a spoon chasing it around in the bowl, using the shell will absolutely help you to get that shell out. The shell acts as a little magnet. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to kind of do a quick little beat to my eggs just to get them going. Look at those gorgeous yolks. I love Ontario eggs. Here we go. Interesting fact, in Europe, they don't wash their eggs, so they sit outside. In Ontario, we do wash our eggs, and that's why we refrigerate them. You always want to make sure you don't have any cracks or anything like that in your eggs. There we go. And to my egg, I'm going to add some beautiful sour cream. This is going to actually make them really light and fluffy. I just broke my cardinal rule. Never bang a spoon right up against glass because then you're going to char it. So that's why I'm tapping it on my finger. That way I'm not going to make sure I'm not going to get any glass or anything into it. Oh, this is looking good already. Nice and creamy. And I'm going to add about a half a teaspoon of rosemary. I prefer to use fresh rosemary. I find that it's easier to work with, and I'm not going to get like a little shot of something that feels like a toothpick in my mouth. Rosemary, like salt, is goes a long way. You don't want to overdo it or overpower things with rosemary. When you're using just the right amount, and I'm going to say this recipe really nails it, it just gives it the most beautiful flavor. So I'm doing a really, 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 really fine mince on this, just to make sure that it is all good. And I'm going to add that to my eggs, just like that. And I'm going to add a pinch of pepper. You can add as much pepper or not as much pepper as you like. I'm not going to add any salt because the prosciutto is already salty, and so you don't really need to add salt to this recipe. Again, to each his own. I meet a lot of people who will, add salt before even tasting anything, which is a bit of a shame. And then they say it's too salty. Oh, the joy. I know that you're relating to me. You've got a relative who likes to add too much salt to everything, eh? Okay, so now I'm giving this a nice, nice whisk and beating it. And you can see it's all coming together quite beautifully. It's giving it nice body. And I'm going to put this here for just a minute. And now I'm going to get my prosciutto. And here we go. So prosciutto is quite large. I'm going to take this prosciutto and I'm just going to cut it in half. And then I can trim the fat off, or I can choose not to. Again, it's totally up to you. And I'm just going to fill my little cup just like this. And I'll do it a little closer here if you'd like to make it a little easier. There you go. I usually use 2 of these just so that they're not too close together. And to this, I'm now going to add some of my goat cheese. And a little goes a long way, so that's going to go into the bottom of it as a little base, and into this one as well. And then I'm going to add my lovely chopped olive, just like that. And then I'm going to add my egg. And I tend to do all the cups all at once and then go through it with the egg at the end, and then that way I know exactly how much egg to put into each of this. And when I did this recipe ahead of time, it was absolutely perfect. And then you're going to bake it for about 10 to 12 minutes, but again, check the temperature of your oven so that you know. And what you will end up with, oh, I can't wait to show you this, is this. Look at these beautiful mini quiche in prosciutto cups. Isn't that gorgeous? You can definitely check out this recipe at foodlandontario.ca, where we all know good things grow. I'm looking forward to you trying this recipe and telling me what you think. We'll see you next time.